Let's call this meeting to order. Well, I'd like to start with introducing our new county board administrator, Dan Grady.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Next, we'll quickly observe a moment of silence. Next, the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lori, can we do a roll call or whoever's doing it?
I will. Roll call.
Here.
Bender has been excused. Jennings,
Here.
Berlin. Here. Corpola.
Here.
Mika.
Here.
Etek.
Here.
Huber. Huber. Hennanen. Hennanen. Wiener. I believe he is excused.
Here.
Oh,
Wiener is here.
thank you.
Over there.
Judy. Here. Burdick.
Here.
Daniel.
Here.
Enzi.
Here.
Here.
Metzinger.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Kabasa. Here. Kinney.
Here.
Ortman.
Here.
Brannick.
Here.
18 present.
Getting close.
Next, we need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
Motion by Mike Berlin, seconded by Kathy Schutte. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say-
Aye.
Aye.
You're opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Like to do a little modification to the agenda. We have quite a few people here over the Hudson Bay discussion. Josh, thinking that over again, it might not be a bad idea for you to go first, and maybe that'll explain some of this stuff to these people.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we're gonna jump to number 6 on the agenda. Or you want to-
I thought maybe during the public comment period.
You want to jump in now and then do public comment after?
Yeah, you want to do it before the public comment?
It's up to you, you know, you can get into the regular agenda and then do the Hudson Bay Dam at that point. So you can still do your public comments and public hearings. Special public hearings, special for your redistricting.
Okay, we'll go on to public comments. Who wants to be first?
I'd rather have that right here to report myself.
Yeah, so the Hudson Bay, if it's okay with the chair, if anybody that's here from Hudson Bay, I would encourage you to allow the people here to speak about Hudson Bay, that you would allow them an opportunity to speak during the regular agenda after I make my presentation.
Okay,
That way, everything is more, it's up to you guys to do it.
anyone else from the audience have a comment about anything other than Hudson Bay?
Discussion of the regular agenda.
It's cool.
It's not appropriate for the
able to enter into the discussion when it's on our regular agenda.
He's correct.
Public comments are separate from the regular agenda.
It's also a point of order. We approved the agenda as it is.
Yeah.
And now you're asking to change it. That should have been done prior to accepting the agenda.
Shame on me.
He's cold. He's cold. They're both cold.
Okay, we're gonna go into a public hearing, redistricting.
Have a comment?
Public comments, 3 minutes. 3 minutes, public comments.
So you want Hudson Bay people to speak now? Anybody for Hudson Bay is gonna have to speak now.
You have to explain something first, or?
No, they want you to do your public comment first. Go ahead.
Yeah,
My name is Ken Kazalka. I've been
yeah, why don't you just sit here in the microphone right here?
Right here? Okay. My name is Ken Kazalka. I've been a homeowner in Spider Lake for over 40 years. And over 2 years ago, I came to Ashland County when we found out that you didn't own it, to propose a plan where we would, the Spider Lake people would fund the Hudson Bay Dam. And I got past the zoning, they were all for it, but I didn't get any further than that. I wasn't able to speak in front of all you people. We came the day after this, after that letter from the DNR. And I guess my question is, the question I have is, option number 2 gave Ashland County a way out of owning the dam by getting the easement from the Uritels and passing it on to Gordon Township along with the ownership of the dam. And I guess my question is, that looks to me like the best option for you guys, and is it being considered?
Okay. Thank you. All right. Did you sign?
What's that?
Did you sign?
No.
They're right outside the door, aren't they?
Yes.
You want to sign up quick? Okay, in the meantime, you. Yeah.
The microphone's right here.
Like my husband Ken just spoke, and I would like to add that for 2 years, we've been trying to get someone to take ownership of this dam. And we have always said that the residents of Spider Lake would be funding the dam. We would like to be having the homeowners on the lake taxed $200 per home to go into a special dam repair and maintenance fund every year on their tax bills. So a fund would accumulate for those repairs and maintenance. In the last 24 hours, we received $30,000 in pledges from the residents on the lake, money that would in earnest go into the dam repair and maintenance fund after we have established ownership and rules that we are satisfied with as homeowners, that someone's not going to take ownership of the dam and then 5 years decide to remove it. So that is our position. We are well ready to take funding of the dam with the repairs and maintenance. All we need is a responsible owner to cooperate with us.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm George Stephen. I'm the newest owner in Spider Lake. I'd hope to respond, learn a little bit more, and I had some questions. So I'm supposed to make comments, not ask questions, correct? Okay. I bought a home site on based on having a dam that the county owns. Nice home site, but if I was to lose the county, I would have muck. So I just want to really support what they're doing here, and I think they're gone way over top to raise money for county maintaining it. So I just hope we can come to a resolution. Yeah, I can ask.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Dan?
Yes.
Somebody's got their mic on, who's follows the area, we haven't turned their mic off, or mute themselves.
The next.
My name is Doug Thorpe. I'm a Town of Gordon Town Chairman. We've been approached by people on Spider Lake about possibly taking over ownership of the Hudson Dam. It's been a long topic and issue, and more people are getting involved all the time. Now, the Town of Gordon really is not equipped to take over another dam. If it sounded like it would be no other option in out there. But I've been talking with zoning, I've been talking with different people. And if the Town of Gordon were to put a special assessment tax on for maintaining and upkeep of the Hudson Dam by partial on the water, along with the town of Marengo doing the same thing. And we would keep the money and give it to the county as they did the maintenance and upkeep on the dam. And we would do a special assessment tax of $200 a year per partial. That I think, I know the people in the town would pass because they would just, people that live on the lake or have interest in the lake would be the ones responsible for their own lake water and their own interests. But as far as taking over ownership in a different township, I've been approached by several people lately that they would vote no at the meeting of the town of electors to take over ownership of a dam in a different township. So, but that's what, I think that would be a fair solution for everybody, is to do a taxation thing for maintenance and upkeep of the dam. And then everybody, it seems like a fair solution just for everybody. So,
Thank you.
that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No.
Good, because I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I am here to talk about the ARPA funds premium pay. I am the lieutenant for the Ashland County Jail. And after listening to some of the comments on some of the other boards, I had put in for a higher amount of premium pay for the jail staff because I feel that our staff is in critical danger when we're dealing with people. The officers on the road are bringing people into the jail all of the time, every day. We're in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week contact with numerous people all the time. There is no more COVID sick time. We only get 40 hours a year of sick time. And according to our county handbook, our failure to report to work may lead to disciplinary action, including suspension and or termination. So if we don't go to work and we don't have sick time and our family has been in contact with COVID, what are we supposed to do? We don't have incentives if we're not getting any premium pay or hazard pay to go in. It's been horrible for the jail staff. We've been so shorthanded. We are overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. I just think that we deserve a lot more than the $250 that they were thinking about. We were kicked out of the union, so we can't negotiate like the deputies did. And I think we deserve a lot more than what is being talked about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Hudson Bay Dam. My name is Dan Allen. I'm a property owner of 2 parcels on Spider Lake, and I'm also a supervisor on the town of Gordon.
I'm feeling that because the group of people that would be involved in the special assessment were that to happen to maintain and repair the dam, as a fund of roughly $30,000 in it that would go towards it, that the town of Gordon should not adopt the dam. The county has ownership of the dam, has easement of the dam, has agreements with the federal government on watershed and water levels, has everything in order they have since the dam was built. And at this point, because of the funding, the agreement with the people on the water to maintain and repair the dam, that the county should keep ownership of the dam and allow things to go as they should. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Randy? Randy DuBois? No? Okay. Anyone else? Anything else under public comments?
Is there anybody online that wants to talk?
If you're online and want to talk, please raise your hand. Doesn't look like it.
No. Yes.
At the Gordon Township meeting Monday evening, the board expressed that Ashland County has ownership and easement of the dam, and they were willing to assume ownership or keep ownership. But they didn't tell us the full story, that if Ashland County owns the dam, they're going to take a foot off the top, thus lowering our lake level. The point of that whole meeting we were at Monday night was Town of Gordon was going to pass a resolution to consider owning the dam with certain criteria being met by both the town and the lake owners. And I think that the Town of Gordon is under a misconception right now with Ashland County and what they intend to do. And until Josh is able to clarify everything, I want everyone to keep an open mind about this, because I don't think Ashland County owning it is the way to go. I think the township should still consider owning it, even if it's jointly with Marengo. But that's, I think, what the lake owners would like to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on public comment?
I'd like to ask a question that's been brought up. If the board knows, can answer the question, is any decision to change levels at the dam is made by the board or individuals?
Josh, can you answer that?
You're not supposed to speak your public
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah. The question will be answered during the agenda item.
Very good, thank you.
Anybody online? Dan?
Nope. We'll try one more time. Does anybody online wish to comment? If so, please raise your hand.
Are we amending our rules to allow more than one opportunity to speak?
Yeah, he's correct. Okay, nobody online is.
All right, we'll go to the public hearing. Redistricting public hearing. You're going to speak to that?
Yeah, I'm just looking for the map. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna say, I think we need a motion.
Yep. You need a motion for.
I'll make a motion that we go into public hearing for the purpose of considering redistricting plans.
I'll second the motion.
And a motion and a second to go into public hearing concerning the redistricting plan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I say no.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. In front of you, you see the new maps that were drawn by GIS and approved by the executive committee last week. It takes some of the districts and makes them more horizontal instead of vertical. It also takes into account the Voting Rights Act when we look up at districts 12 and 13. It ensures that the Native American population has a majority district, which complies with the Voting Rights Act. It also puts, and I'll come to it from the city level, it also puts Madeline Island, or all the islands, actually in District 11.
You said 11?
Yeah, I believe it's 11.
Okay.
Yeah, the red one right here. Now, because it shifts in population in the city of Ashland, the lines have to be drawn somewhat differently. We tried to keep the lines as closely as possible to what they are now, but there has been population shifts. And in trying to balance the rest of the county together, the lines are moved a little bit. And this is a close-up view of the city of Ashland. They've been numbered so they closely resemble to what the current lines are. And while they might affect some people, this is what we came up with. We did speak to corporate counsel, and he supports this map. He says it complies with all federal rules and state rules. Yes, sir.
This was not approved by the executive committee. This is the first time we're looking at it today.
This is the same map we have, we just renumbered it.
Okay, but I'm just saying, the executive committee did not approve this plan, just for the record.
It was approved by the redistricting.
We did, I'm sorry, redistricting. I misspoke, I'm sorry. So we're here to take public comment on this map. I'll go back to the other one.
Anyone from the audience want to comment on the redistricting map? I want to add this, that this map that's in your paperwork today has really nothing to do with how it's going to turn out. We did this because the timeline on it that had to be finalized by a certain date, move forward, and then we're going to finalize the actual map at the next meeting.
In November.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has to be done because it has to go to the states, the county, the municipalities, so they have a month to work on it too. Then it comes back to the county.
Do we have the GIS person speak on this, please?
Would you like to hear from me now in the public hearing, or would you like to hear from me?
It's an agenda item later.
on the agenda item?
Okay.
So that was an explanation for the public. So let me see if anybody online. Does anybody online wish to comment? If so, please raise your hand.
I don't see anyone, Dan.
So if you want to take motion to end the public hearing.
To go out of public hearing.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the public hearing and go back into open session.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go out of the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion was made by Clarence Campbell, seconded by Patrick Boswell. Okay, we're out of public hearing. Go to the regular agenda, E on your schedule. Need a motion to approve the August 3rd, 2021 county board minutes.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
Motion made by Kathy Schutte,
Second.
seconded by Patrick Kabasa. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. September, number 3, September National Preparedness Month. Are you going to discuss this?
I don't know how much about it. This is just celebrating National Preparedness Month. There's not much to it.
Nothing to discuss.
Nothing to discuss.
Okay, for National Preparedness Month, we have a resolution been drawn up. I don't know if you want me to read this in the entirety, or if you're just going to take my word for it.
We can read it here in front of us, so I'll make a motion that we pass the resolution for the preparedness, September's National Preparedness Month.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Pepe Tabasa. All those in favor of accepting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Mark Miller retirement.
I'd like to make the motion that we accept this resolution honoring Mark. This is Laura Negro.
All right. Want to read it first before we accept it?
Please.
Resolution honoring Mark Miller's 42 years of service to Ashland County. Whereas Mark Miller has served Ashland County with distinction, honor, and dedication in the county courthouse for 42 years. And whereas the County Board of Supervisors and fellow county employees value and appreciate his dedication over the years. And whereas Mark Miller has cared for the county courthouse as custodian, maintenance person for 42 of its 104-year existence. Now therefore be it resolved that the Ashland County Board of Supervisors assembled the 16th day of September 2021 honors Mark Miller for his 42 years of public service to Ashland County and expresses gratitude for his efforts, wishing him well in the years ahead. Signed, the city of Ashland, Wisconsin, at the city of Ashland, Wisconsin on the 16th day of September 2021. Okay, now we have a motion to pass this resolution.
Second.
Yep,
I make a motion that we accept this.
we had a motion. Laura make a motion.
I'm sorry. You have a second?
Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Seconded by Pepe. All those in favor say aye.
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 She's gonna make some salsa. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you very much to Mark. Mark and I are fellow graduates of Ashland High School, so we know each other a long time. I thank Mark for everything he did for the county.
Thank you, thanks, appreciate it.
I think you're one of our unseen heroes in this building. I really do. So much stuff that we didn't get to see because you were there before us. And so much of that is never heard of. But we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts that you were able to continue this with us. On that, no, I don't think we were, but anyway, I just appreciate and
people like you that are dedicated to this place is what makes this county run better.
I'd like to believe that. We made it through COVID. That was my big thing. If I can retire, if we make it through COVID, so.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
yes. I appreciate everybody's recognition and stuff. It's.
Mark, 42 years is a long time at anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, take our direction and go enjoy your weekend.
I fully intend to. My family has plans for it.
I bet they do.
Yep.
I would like to say something, Mark, too, that your dedication to your duty is just unbelievable.
Thank you.
Guy that came to work every day and didn't have to be told what to do. He knew what he was gonna do. And that's a very valuable asset. Thank you so much.
You bet. I've done the best I could. I'm turning, and even as we speak, we're training another janitress. And I hope to pass the torch and keep going, you know, as well as we're going, so. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a long time coming. I think I mentioned this to Dan yesterday. It's been a long time coming.
Only 42 years.
Yeah, I spent almost 2/3 of my life here.
I know.
So, thank you, everybody.
Yes.
I appreciate the recognition.
Okay. Before Mark leaves, can I say something?
Mark, can you wait?
Laura. Laura wants to say, Laura wants to say.
Laura.
Mark, as Chair of Public Property and Law Enforcement, we have appreciated all your insight and care for the building for at the time that I've been on and for those 42 years. I don't think I've ever seen anybody that's been so dedicated to such a wonderful thing and caring for the public's property like you have. So you have a wonderful, wonderful, relaxing retirement.
Thank you very much. I hope to have all that.
Richard, would you mind shaking your hand so I get a photo with the paper?
Shake his hand for a photo op.
Rick wants to do a picture.
Hold on, please.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yep.
Happy trails.
Okay, next on the agenda, the floodplain ordinance, number 5.
Aim for 60s, I'll tell you that.
Are you gonna speak to that, Josh?
I can, yeah.
We'd appreciate it, you know more about it than any of us.
So for item number 5 is just the adoption of the floodplain ordinance. Whenever dam owners, in this case, there were 3 dams where the DNR had adopted dam failure studies, which affect areas downstream. We're actually only given 6 months to adopt them. We'd gotten a waiver from the DNR to extend this because we knew we had 3 coming. Otherwise, we would have gone through this process and expense on 3 different occasions. All this is doing is solidifying and protecting areas downstream, so no developments allowed within the flood channel of the dams. So, any questions? Yes, Bill.
Was there a public hearing held on this
Yep, several months ago through zoning.
and the zoning office approved this?
Correct. Yep.
Josh,
Yes.
what are the 3 dams that we're talking about?
I don't have it in front of me. They're in the packet. Dead Horse Slough was one of them. You'd have to look. I honestly don't know. Off the top of my head, it's been too many months now.
It's around here.
Oh, this is.
For you, Dan.
So Fawn Lake. Uline. And then Dead Horse. They're all privately owned.
Okay, we're gonna need a motion then to adopt the floodplain ordinance. Any more discussion? Pat? Motion approved by Pat Kenny. Second by Pepper Kabasa. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. You might as well just stay right here. Oh, yes. Number 6 on the agenda, the Hudson Bay Dam.
So the Hudson Bay Dam has kind of been a drawn out issue. The assumption always was the county owns the dam. Doing some research a couple of years ago led to the fact that the dam was permitted under the assumption that the county had a recorded deed for the property location where the dam is located. That deed was never recorded, so the state actually had issued the permit to construct the dam on a drafted version of the deed that we never actually had legal possession of the property to build on. Subsequently, by not knowing, the county has renewed permits with the National Forest Service because we have, by having the dam, we flood a certain portion of their wetlands. So that's been continually renewed. When this came to light a couple of years ago, that's where the county pushed back because we don't meet the state's requirement as a dam owner, which is either deed to the property or an easement. The DNR is taking the stance now that they're requiring us to get an easement and accept ownership to the dam. They're basically forcing a reverse adverse possession claim on the county. There's different options the county has. One option would be to do nothing, force the DNR to pursue the county and try to prove their case legally. Another option would be to get the easement after we get information from the towns that their tax districts are set up, so the county's not stuck holding the financial bag for the dam. Another option would be just to get the easement and accept ownership and then hope everything else comes into play. Or table this and let the town decide if they're, and push the town to take ownership of the dam. Some paths are easier than others. Currently, the Yellowtails will not communicate with the townspeople or zoning. So if we were to get the easement, we can draft an easement request, submit it with a letter to the Yellowtail family so they can discuss it. If they decline to grant the easement, we'll have to take legal action against them and either take an easement through the court system or eminent domain on the property for the good of the public. Which that would be a road we'd have to cross, at which point if Yellowtails decide to not grant the easement. So we're looking for guidance at this point from the county board and what direction the board would like to go. Yes, Bill.
I had previously been the assessor for the town of Marengo for 36 years. The question always came and asked me who owned the dam. And I had checked the records as the tax buyer being the tax lister, and I could find nothing on record. Charlie Yellowtail just passed away this summer. So the family's probably settling his estate and getting that squared away. Like I said, the dam is located in the town of Marengo, and it doesn't affect too many people in the town of Marengo. It affects mostly the town of Fort, where the lake is. But there is a few people in the town of Marengo it does affect. My big question, it's a dam that's it's quite old and needs some replacing and some upkeep. It's a beautiful spot. The big thing is, I think it's important to know if you're going to be, if the town is going to levy a special assessment, is it only going to be on the improved parcels? And is it going to affect the town of Marengo also? Is it only going to be on the improved parcels, the parcels with buildings in it? Or is it going to be on all the parcels with vacant land? How is the proposal to handle that?
there's been two different proposals. One would be to only assess improved properties and the other is assess individual properties. My opinion would be you would assess every property there, improved or not, because if you own a property and you come up and camp on it, but you don't have a structure, you're not going to pay for the dam, even though you're benefiting from the dam. If you own 4 lots on your house, you can combine your parcels. So the towns would have to look at it and say, okay, we want to generate, under the current plan, we would generate $5,000 a year. That's just a number I'm throwing out there. If the property owners combine their parcels, so there's less parcels, then that dollar per parcel then would go up. Because that number would have to be maintained. If they're doing the tax district, they also need to allow for growth. I mean, obviously, over the years, there's gonna have to be an increase, whether it's an annual rate of increase or what have you, to keep that money increasing with the times. Like you said, there are repairs that need to be done. The dam is currently operating at a level that exceeds the permits. So if the county were to take ownership, we're gonna have to either A, petition the DNR and the Forest Service to allow us to increase the water levels to where they've been actually since about 1939. If you look through your packets, this picture from 1939 predates the dam. So getting the permits amended for where the water level's at will take time. And it's not gonna be the end of the world to get done because the dam's been there. The level hasn't changed since the second year the dam was in, when they put the addition on the dam. There are expenses, like you said, that are gonna be incurred. That's why the property owners have gotten the pledges of $30,000 roughly in the last 24 hours as a good faith effort. If the tax district's in place and that money is set into a non-lapsing fund specifically for the dam, there's limited liability to them to the county because it's gonna be funded by the property owners around at least Spider Lake. My understanding was that the other township was willing to assess Muckwell Lake also. But I don't know that anybody's here to address that. So that's a consideration the board would have to make. The larger burden may be borne on the Spider Lake residents.
Yes, yeah.
Josh, when in 1968, when the county that did the application to put a dam on private property,
Correct.
that was their first mistake.
And
they did that back then.
Correct.
But now, every 10 years, the county had to fill in a report and send it to the DNR that the dam was okay. They've been doing that for 60 years, National County has. But now they've decided they aren't the owners of it.
Correct.
And I believe that the county is the owner of it because they've been doing the reports. If they made a mistake when they did the application, it should have been corrected right away. But for 60 years, the county has been saying they're the owners of it. And Charlie and Claire Ulatils are private people who own the land. So to ask them for an easement now, it's like saying the county can come on my property and put a dam on my property and be in charge of it.
Well, it's already there. It's already there.
Yes, the dam is there.
So the permit was erroneously issued under the assumption that that draft version was recorded when in fact it wasn't. So the state failed in their due diligence. The state's counter to that was a county board official had basically then perjured themselves stating that the deed was recorded. By state statute, if we don't have access, either deeded access or an easement, we are not the owner. It's right in the state statutes. So by the current language, we are not the owner. We do not have deeded access to the property. The county was under the assumption for all those years that they were, which would be similar to a case of a few years ago in Bayfield County. Somebody built a house on a 40 that they assumed they owned. Forest Service came along and said, "You're on the wrong 40. We own your house now." Another case that just came last year, another one in Bayfield County where people had built their house. County came out and approved it. They got their permits and they found out they're 15 feet on the county land. So now the people are trying to buy the land from the county. They don't own the land because they built on it. Just like we don't own the land because we built the dam. They pay taxes all those years on the house that the Forest Service took ownership of. The people that ended up on county land pay taxes for all those years because they assumed they owned it, but they didn't. They were wrong. The county went through all this paperwork and reissuing, getting the permits reissued to the Forest Service all the years under the assumption that they owned it, when in fact they don't have the easements and don't meet the criteria for ownership as set forth in state statute. So going forward, we can go after the easement. Utilitarians would have no choice but to grant the easement. If they don't want to grant the easement, then the county can take the property through eminent domain. For the good of the public, there's public access they could lose their property over it if they wanted to play hardball. And that's the position the county board's gonna have to decide. If you don't want to force an easement or go eminent domain, then you let this thing slide out and see what the DNR is gonna do.
You know, the late Charlie Little.
Yes, yep.
They are wonderful people, guys.
That's not in question here, though.
They're paying their taxes, they don't destroy the land, and to say we're gonna take eminent domain and take your place, I don't think that's the way to go, Josh.
You have,
Too many questions that are unanswered today.
so then your position would be to do nothing potentially, and see what the DNR is gonna do, make the DNR force the issue. Because it's one or the other, it can't be both.
There's too many questions that are left unanswered on this issue. That's
Okay,
my topic.
sure.
That's my point.
What's your recommendation?
Questions?
Josh,
Yes,
I think it's important to point out that in 1968, the yield tellers did not own the property. There's been like 3 or 4 different owners in between.
correct.
So that's important to point out. I guess I would like to have the town of Ringo board weigh in on it and see what they would have to say as far as who they're going to levy a special assessment on. Because that is important, because when it comes down to, if you have a vacant lot, and you're going to be paying as much as people with the approved lots, it's important for them to know. Is there a time frame when we have to have this done by,
They're telling us by the end of the year.
at the end of the year?
Yeah, and even if we had to take, if we decided today to take legal action to gain easement, you're not gonna get it done by the end of the year, so. If the county's either outright says we're not gonna do anything. If they notify the DNR that we're waiting for additional information, I would suspect they'll continue to extend that out.
Maybe the yield tellers are waiting to see what the county and the towns are going to do before they make a decision.
There's people from the town that could speak otherwise to that. They were told point blank that politely that they weren't gonna grant an easement, but
What, Matt, you're at the DNR or you're done?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. I would like to know what the DNR's plan is to weigh in on this, because my idea to solve this is the less people that got something to do with it, the easier it's gonna get. Now, if we don't own it, what are we fighting for?
well, the DNR is stating we do, and they're trying to force us into the easement. The state statute currently says an owner means an individual, partnership, public utility, company, cooperative, trust, corporation, association, state, interstate, city, village, town, county, or special purpose district, such as a drainage district or public inland lake protection and rehabilitation district. And this is the key part, which has title to or recorded easement for operation, maintenance, and access to a dam to the specific parcel of land on which a dam exists. We do not have that.
Okay, so that means it is not ours.
That's the argument.
Okay, so I don't know, simple thing, but
Mhm.
wouldn't we be better off to say MPB and not have these problems with it to them? Let that, you've got less people arguing the situation.
So,
We can't afford it.
but, right, so that's two parts. So they're talking about doing the tax district to fund that, so the county won't have to pay for it. If the county says we're not gonna own it, and the DNR is either gonna take us to task on this and try to force it through court action, which it'd be a very challenging thing to do, or B, it ends up on a removal list with the DNR, at which point the DNR could sit down and work with both townships if they want to do some ownership, or property owners could form a lake district and take ownership. So those would be 3 other alternatives.
To me, that would, that takes that off of us, because that, I mean, I know you would tell us, we know everybody in this area. And good, bad, or, when the government or the county or anybody says, move that over there, what choice do you have?
Right.
And so let's get serious. I don't want to see the county having to pay all this money
to do something we don't want to do. Common sense tells me that. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but if we don't own it and we're gonna end up going to court one way or another, I'd rather have the DNR saying, well, we're taking you to court, so the people understand. And
Bill and then Pat.
If the county gets an easement.
I've also had my hand up for a while.
If the county gets an easement or takes ownership of the property, they could not prevent people from going in there.
False. The easement would be for maintenance, ingress and egress for county, for maintenance repairs of the dam.
Spell out what it is.
Correct.
For, specifically, but I think maybe that's the reluctance of Unitil's to give an easement because there'll be so many people in there.
No.
I don't know what their reasoning is.
I talk, please.
Ken, there's a lady that's waiting online, and take the lady online and then take Ken after that.
that's.
She's on the board, so they can, yeah.
Philomena, go ahead.
Hey, everyone. Nice to see you all. So, yeah, I agree with Pepe. And, in my experience, I've had a lot of dealings with the Wisconsin DNR as, on the issues of treaty rights. And oftentimes the DNR is really bluffy. And so, they'll make these very wild legal claims. Just like in this case, like the county, like the DNR can force the county to take ownership of this property. I don't think so. And, so I feel like this is a lot of bluster. And just like Pepe said, the county's not in a position to invest a lot of money and effort and staff time into this. And so, I feel like their little deadlines, so what about their little deadlines? If they take us to court, they're not going to have an argument because the county doesn't own anything related to this dam. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really in favor of not moving forward with anything and seeing if the people who really have more interest in this step up in terms of a lake association or the townships do something, because really I don't know why the county's involved in this. There was a mistake a long time ago, and we've realized that there's no ownership, and I don't think we should move forward with respect to taking any affirmative action on this.
I'd like to.
Wait a minute, Pat.
Never mind.
Matt's got his hand up to over here.
Well, in the end, somebody's gonna own this. The county could own it, the towns could own it, or the Unitels potentially could own this if we go to court and the judge decides who owns this. I don't think the Unitels are gonna wanna own this, and then the burden of the maintenance and repairs or removal falls to them. That would be something you wouldn't want, financially. What Bill suggested, I was going to suggest too, if we can get an easement that limits access only to the government body that needs to do inspections and repairs, then you have someone out there on a very limited basis, and you have that assurance that writing that you can get an easement with that in there, or some kind of written agreement that will satisfy the DNR. If it's limited to that, I think people, whoever owns the land, are going to feel more comfortable. But if you are concerned whether that concern is legitimate or not, a steady stream of people going in there for whatever reason, that feels different. So if you could talk to them about the agreement where it's limited to inspection and repair, and then also talk to them about what happens if we end up in court and you end up owning it. So the Unitels understand that. Those are places I would like to start. But the other thing we got to keep in mind is, in the end, there's a lot of people down there that are saying, hey, we want to keep that dam, we want to keep the water level there, we're willing to help fund that, and we've got to, try to work with that too, because, there's a lot of people that not only want that, but just from an economic development standpoint, there's a lot of people who are living here and spending money here and paying taxes here and building homes here because of that water level.
That's
And
right.
so, we want to make sure we keep that end goal of keeping that there, if that's what the people want.
Yeah.
I guess I echo what Ms. Kendrick said. I also have a lot of experience with the DNR, and I know that at times, they are in certain positions that they're not willing to budget. My suspicion is on this one here without, it's been some time since I've looked at this. I agree with her. I think we should let things play towards letting the DNR decide whether they want to force the issue in court or not. But I think all we're doing is taking a little more time to come up with a conclusion of what's got to be done. And I think as lake owners, if you don't look at it and realize that if you don't take this responsibility, you're gonna lose your dam.
Well, we're trying to take.
That's ultimately what they're after here, is removal of dams. And, the county is not in a position where we're gonna maintain and operate that dam if we don't have to. And that's the whole thing, is we don't have to. It does affect property values, I get it. And it also, affects quality of life, and that you have a lake down there rather than a stream. The question is, how important is that? And if you're on that lake, it's very important. If you're not on that lake, then it becomes less important. You're gonna have an argument with the rest of the county about why should we assume this liability, because it does have a liability. But for now, I think what we need to do is let the DNR take us to court if that's what they want to do. But at the same time, we need to come up with a timetable of when we're gonna have a decision on who's gonna own it and who's gonna maintain it and how it's gonna be paid for.
Happy.
I just like one more. When you go to a dog fight, you throw maybe 2 dogs in and hope for the best for one of them. I, as a pony, don't want to see us going in with a whole bunch of dogs. The sooner we get out of this, the government's in everything. Let them work on this. They showed you that they're ready to take the ball and roll with it. They've got money in the bank, they've got signatures. Let them decide. They don't need us. I don't think they need us. If that fails and we end up with it, then let's go from there. But right now, I think as a government that we should sit back and let them figure it out, because they can. There's more of them than there are of us. I'd rather see their decision.
Josh, now these. Pardon? Go ahead, George.
Go ahead. I'm on zoning, and we've heard this thing for 2 years now. I wouldn't be afraid if any of them, the county took it, the town took it, and I told Kathy, even the Rivers Association, they have a Lakes Association. I don't know what the big deal is. This is a small dam. And the only reason it's on the issue right now is it's a foot higher than the whoever, Forest Service, DNR, says it qualifies as the Hoover Dam. This is what one of the first things. So we either got to take it down a foot or we got to take ownership of it. Now, I fished that. I mean, back in the 70s when it was first put in. This is not a big dam.
Correct.
There's no way that this dam ain't gonna go out. 4 years ago, we had a foot of water. So with the lakes, the Spider Lake is 5 miles from the dam. So this water, you could figure that if we got a foot down in Marengo, Sanborn, where I live, they had 4 or 5 feet come over that dam. It didn't mean nothing. And it won't mean nothing. So, we talked to the people that live on Spider Lake. They don't want it. I don't know why. They could tax themselves. Here's the problem, people, especially those that live along it and that. If that dam goes out, we don't have to put it back in. There's no law that says we have to put that dam back in. That dam was put in there. If you read the story, and it's excellent. Josh did a fantastic job on the history and the scenarios. If you read those, you'll see why that dam probably gonna last 100 years. And I'll correspond it with a different dam. We got what's called the Day Lake Dam. Now, that dam is 3 or 4 times the size of this Hudson Bay Dam. Forest Service came to us 10, 12 years ago, and they wanted us to go to a 100-year floodplain because it's at a 500-year floodplain. The people there around Clam Lake come and said, our insurances are gonna go so stinking high, we don't want it. And they walked away, and it's still, you know, it is what it is. This is a beautiful area where, and if anybody wants it, Dick will take you with a kayak, or if not, Mary Jo will. If anybody wants to go and see it. I've seen the whole thing on Fish Good. It's a fantastic part of Ashland County. So I would say, yeah, let's take it. I mean, we can work through it after that, but somebody has to take it by the 31st. Or the Forest Service, which owns land on the other side, is gonna come and knock it out. We don't want that. We want that dam there all because of what happened up there. Look at the taxes these people pay. So, you know, we're not looking for a motion right now, but yeah, Josh, I don't know if you can come up with a understanding with either the town or the county. I'm all for taking ownership of that. Who's gonna say I gotta put it back in if it goes out? And I'll put my savings account against anybody else's that says it'll never go out.
So a couple of corrections. So number one, if the dam does fail, if we own the dam and it fails, yes, we have to put it back in.
Why?
DNR requirements. If we get the easement, we're the owner.
Where are those requirements?
I can
Does it have
get you
to
the
be
state
5
statutes
feet?
if you want.
How about if we put it in at 2 feet?
Well, you actually can move about 35 feet upstream. There's a granite channel, granite ridge across there. 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, when we went through there, we took a pontoon, literally through Spider Lake, through the channel, through Muckle Lake, right to the edge of the dam. But that granite ridge, right before the dam pool, the water was a foot deep. So if that dam would have been built back 30 feet in that little granite ridge, it would have been this big. And then DNR would have not been involved at all.
You take ownership and you let the beaver build a dam above it.
So actually what's going on right now, because the water levels are lower this year, it's all fed from streams. You can look at the maps and see that. There's 2 active beaver dams right now. Because when water levels slow down, beavers become more active. So the beavers are doing their job.
So like I said, 4 years ago, we had probably 4 or 5 extra feet of water coming over that dam.
Right.
And when we seen it on County Trunk C, yeah, it was high, but you know, that's what, 8 miles from County Trunk C. If that dam did go out, I don't think we'd hardly see it. I know we wouldn't. There wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't be flooding roads, it just wouldn't. You know, and like I said, if you went up and seen it, it's that beautiful of a chunk of water and wildlife that I really feel we, at the county, we should take it. And if nobody else is gonna, that's a good start.
In your packet, this picture is pre-dam 1938. This would be the granite ridge. That's at the end, probably holding it back, and a beaver dam again. And if you scale this drawing out to the GIS from last year, it's actually slightly bigger here than it is.
You know, and that picture's a nice picture, but even in your report, you got a Muckwood Dam, their duck lake, it's only 7 feet deep. That would go, you know, I just don't see the issue here at all. I mean, I would take ownership of it and then work with the town and the people that live up it. I mean, it's something we gotta keep. I mean, we don't want it knocked out.
Right.
What happens if we don't take ownership of it? The Forest Service gonna come and knock it
The
out?
Forest Service has nothing to do with the DNR. So if the county takes the stance that we have, that we don't own it, it would go on the dam removal list. The DNR still has to have public hearings. There would still be a chance for the property owners to form a lake district. The townships would still have the same chance to take it over long before it would ever come out of it. You know, if they take us to court, let's say we end up in court May 1st, okay? And by May 2nd, they say you don't own the dam. It's not coming out May 3rd. There's still a lengthy process that has to go through. whether we own it, the DNR owns it, the town owns it, they say we're taking the dam out. There's still a public hearing process, a petition process, no matter who owns the dam. There's a fairly lengthy process that has to go through before.
The government loves process.
Correct.
We
There you
love
go.
paperwork and all this stuff, so why wouldn't we get in here?
What we do, from a zoning standpoint, I would like to see some sort of motion today, whether it's to move forward with an easement, to table it to give the towns an opportunity to come forward with their tax districts to finance the dam, or, that the board decides to do nothing to push the issue with the DNR.
Supervisor Wortman, could I have a crack at this, Dick, please, when you see fit?
Josh, do you have any recommendations?
I'm neutral. It can go a lot of ways. The town, the people on the lake raised $30,000 in 24 hours. Okay. They're willing to do the tax district. If the towns go through on their end and get the tax districts forms, and the $30,000 goes in to a non-lapsing dam fund that everybody that puts into it has access. The concern is that they want to make sure the money doesn't disappear like other money that has gone to the general fund and it gets blown and then there's no money. It's not going to the general fund. It would be a non-lapsing fund specifically for the Hudson Bay Dam. It's one of the criteria that I've talked to property owners, and they want to make sure that money's going to be there. Well, if they raise $30,000 and that goes into the non-lapsing fund and the tax district's in place, that's pretty solid insurance. The county's not going to be bearing the burden of the cost. The property owners are going to be bearing the cost, and they're willing to accept that. So that's one option. That they're all neutral recommendations from my department. Another option is to do nothing, force the DNR's hand. Another option would be to get the easement, and hope that the tax districts come into play. If they don't, then the county's stuck holding the bag. So it just depends on how much exposure the county wants.
All right, question for you.
Yes.
If we get an easement and they don't come up with the tax district, what's the consequences of that?
Then the county's on the hook for all the expenses.
Okay.
So yes, Kathy and Charlie.
Take Charlie first because he's first.
No.
Ooh, Charlie?
Yeah,
Charlie Ortman.
Can't read a postage stamp.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. I would just, to me, after hearing everyone's discussion, I think the smart thing to do is give the towns as much time as we possibly can before we have to act, to get their stuff squared away enough where Josh is convinced that the county won't hold the bag, and then do what we need to do to make sure they get their dam. Thank you.
We got Laura and we got Kathy. Who wants to go?
Take Laura first.
Go ahead, Laura.
Josh, if we let the DNR go with their process and we don't do anything, the tax district can still go through, and that still gives the towns enough time without us taking possession of it?
Correct. So if the county decides today to do nothing to let the DNR push the issue, the tax districts everything can still move forward from the property owner standpoint. They can move forward with the tax districts. They can get those in place. They can decide in the Lake District, towns can look at it. I mean, at the end of the day, if we say we're not going to do anything, hopefully the townspeople would continue to move forward, because last minute deal, if the DNR ends up suing the county, worst case, you end up owning the dam, which is, either A, you can transfer it to a Lake District or to the townships, or the tax districts are in place to fund it. So
We don't want to own it.
right, that's been the consensus because of the liability. But if you choose to do nothing today and force the DNR's hand, you have up until the judge rules. And if everything's in place to take ownership at that point, you're not out anything ultimately, because you're still going to be stuck owning the dam. But you're going to hope the tax districts are in place. If the tax districts don't come into play by the time you have to go to court, you're going to obviously push harder against the DNR, and you're not going to take a settlement from the DNR. If the tax districts are in place, in 60 days and the county board's happy, we can work on easement then, because all the tax districts are in place.
Okay, that would be the one that I would support.
Kathy?
Dick, so we're talking about the town of Marengo. So Josh came to the town of Marengo about 8, 9 months ago
Yeah, could be.
and asked the town if that the county does not want to own it anymore. They want someone else to own it. They asked the town of Marengo when I was on the board at that time. I'm not on the board anymore. And it was a unanimous 3-0 vote. The town doesn't want it for the same reason the county doesn't want it. They don't have money to repair the dam. You're asking the town of Marengo or the town of Gordon to take on something that we already know is old and it needs repairs. And the town doesn't have no money to fix a dam. They're not going to. You can ask the new board. There is a new board in place. Maybe Josh should go back to the town and ask them.
Why isn't that the perfect time to dump it then? Like a car with 200,000 miles, it's almost done.
But don't dump it on a small town that doesn't have.
They're asking for it.
It's on private property in the town of Marengo. They're in the town of Gordon.
They can still take ownership. The Lake District could take ownership.
That,
A legal question, if the county pursues an easement to the dam, is that implicit as far as admitting that they'll own it then?
Correct. Because then you meet the statutory set requirements.
So as soon as we start down the path of easement, then we're effectively saying we own it.
Correct.
And that starts limiting our options. So Josh and I talked about this a few weeks ago. I'm happy that all of you have shown up today. There's a lot of conversations going on. So he talked to me because I'm chair of zoning. My personal feeling on this at this point is the DNR isn't going to force us anytime soon. If we're having conversations collectively about this, and I don't think a judge would force a decision either if we're collectively having conversations about this. So I would suggest that we talk with the hotels and say, what if the county pursued an easement? Would you agree to an easement that limited it to whoever owned it, whether it's the county or townships? So only inspections and repairs, no other people for no other reasons. And then also look at the Lakes District, because I don't know if you can, personally, I don't know offhand if you can do that if you don't own it or have an agreement to own it. And if we need to own it so we can give it to you, that's one thing. But if there might be limits on how they can pursue this depending on where the county is at.
So if the county takes a stance that we don't own it, we don't go forward with it, and then property owners decide to form a lake district, the DNR, they would still need the easement.
Would they have the right to pursue an easement if they don't own it at that time, or would they?
They would be able to pursue the easement. They could form the lake district, get the easement and work with the DNR will work through those things with the township, the county or lake district. You know, but they'll have to have the easement and it could be transferred to the lake district. The request from the DNR was if that was the route we took, that the hotels would file a quitclaim deed to any and all perceived ownership. The DNR asked if the county would sign a quitclaim deed to any perceived ownership, which the county could decide to, or decide, you know, we don't own it, we're not even a quitclaim interest, we have no interest in the dam. So, yes, to answer the question, it could transfer from the DNR directly to a lake association.
So Bill asked you a bit ago, if you have any recommendations, would you recommend that the one or both towns look into a lake district and see if they can come up with something that the town would support as a starting point?
I know Ken had looked into that too, and it's the towns, they didn't like the idea, the people on the lake did not like that idea, but obviously it's at the county's, they're at the county's mercy. The county's gonna decide to not take ownership. They're gonna have to decide on either the townships take it or Lake District takes it.
But could we wait until they actually done whatever they're gonna do in terms of whether you do a referendum or however you want to make that decision so that there's clarity on that from the townships?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, even if you took the stance that we're not gonna pursue with an easement, you're pushing the DNR's hand, forcing their hand. Nothing happens overnight, so there's still gonna be, 6 months probably before anything would even get to court. So that still is plenty of time for, townships or lake association or what have you to move forward with it. And as far as easement goes, we had our corp council draft that exact language for Ulatels and they refused, she wanted nothing to do with it. Ingress and egress for the county for repair and maintenance. Happy, but.
All this stuff we're talking about as a county, somebody's getting paid. You get paid extra to do all this?
No, it's part of my job.
Okay, so did you have to haul a lawyer in to look through this?
We've had our corp counsel involved a couple of times, yeah.
Okay, so every time that we do anything that we're gonna do, we're gonna have a lawyer, which is gonna be more money in my career.
Well, at this point, if the county decides to not do anything, we do just that. We do nothing.
Okay,
You know, and then at which point, if the DNR serves notice that they're gonna sue us over ownership and force adverse possession of the county, it's gonna set a precedent.
and that's their bill on us.
Right, and at that point, if we would have to, you know, move forward with our corp counsel to represent us in that case. But, you know, up until the day of the trial or the hearing, I mean, you could still say, you know what? We're gonna take an easement and we'll just assume ownership. The tax districts are in place. If everything got lined up ahead of time, you don't have to wait till that drop dead minute.
Okay, because I just can't see, every time we have a meeting, usually it'll be small groups, but they all get paid on this board. Unless they're like, don't want to pay, I'll do it for nothing. But, so we have 10, 15 meetings, because this has been going on, what, 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years, how many meetings have we had?
Right.
And it has cost us. Why don't we quit the dicking around, go to black and white, yes or no? If we're not gonna have to spend the money on this, I say, let them force us.
George?
No, a DNR, I mean the DNR force. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry if it came out like that.
George?
But what I'm saying is,
Once again, if you read the paper that Josh put before us, it's got some unique things, and in the 30 years I've been on the board, we have attacked and handled many unique things in Ashland County. It says here, and Josh just kind of didn't ruffle my feathers, but if we take over and it fails, we gotta put it in, but the county can take it out. Now, that's what it says here. The county can take it out. So in 10 to 20 years, and this is why I go back to the people that live there, and it's unique to why they don't take it over, because a lot of people think I'm irrational. Well, being here 30 years, I've seen a lot of people irrational in my thoughts. You get a company board in 25 years that want to knock it out, and they're gonna knock it out because they can do that. Why would you people that live on that lake take that chance? You can charge yourselves $200-300 per person and put it in a lapsing fund. If it ever did go out, you'd have more than enough money in there to replace it, and you don't have to replace it, like Josh said, where it is and to that same spec. You can put a dam in anywhere you want, hire a bunch of beavers. They'll dam anything. But so, you know, I think we need Josh and this group to still, maybe even Town of Ringo. I told Town of Ringo, charge a few $100, put it in a lapsing fund, and you'll have enough to put new roads in 20 years. Because the dam isn't gonna go out.
only for
I don't believe that dam will ever go out.
I believe.
And not in anybody's lifetime that's in here, anyway. So, you know, I don't know, do we need a motion?
Well, George, you're making two different recommendations.
You know,
You said the first time around that we should keep it. I was saying we should keep it.
well,
We're trying to get out from under the expense of the dam.
yeah, well,
No better way to do it.
Matt's got a question or comment.
More of a comment than a question. Us doing nothing and let the DNR, you know, play their hand actually may help us as far as the legal fees, because I think our insurance would kick in and we would be covered under our liability insurance for legal fees and not have to pay the per cost. So it's another reason, in my opinion, that we do nothing and let the DNR play their hand while we work at coming up with this solution to this.
Happy, you've almost wore out your welcome here. Just
That's
kidding.
good, because I want to leave with a bang. But I would like, can I make a motion at this
Yeah,
point?
anybody can.
Can I make a motion that we sit back, let the DNR make their. I keep lift the board up.
I'll second that.
See, a motion's been made and seconded to force the.
Then we do
DNR.
nothing.
Mhm.
That would be my recommendation. That gives them time. Leave all right. Okay. what would you-
Motion was made by Pepe Tabasa that we do nothing,
Seconded by Matt McKenzie.
seconded by Matt McKenzie. Any more discussion? Pat?
If we go to court on ownership, if I'm understanding you correctly from our conversation, and the judge says the county owns it, then we have the financial responsibility. What happens if the judge says that? What happens if the judge says that you will tell them? Do they have financial responsibility?
So the way it would go.
Or does the DNR bear the burden of the dam then?
So from my conversation with the DNR, when a dam is privately owned, okay, we just dealt with some issues here in privately owned dams. If Pepe owned a dam right now, when she sold it to you, you have to show your financial abilities to the DNR, and then the DNR would transfer it from Pepe to you as a private person. It's very difficult for the DNR to force that onto the Intel's, just like they can't force it onto the county. So the DNR had said before that if the county didn't accept ownership, or they couldn't prove ownership on to the county, it would be property of the DNR, and they would put on a removal list. And that would still, even if we went to court, we did nothing, end up in court, and the judge rules in our favor that we don't own it, ends up on a list in public hearings, and they form a lake association, or the town takes it over, it can still be transferred between the DNR and that lake association or the townships. They're still up until the wrecking ball is the transfer ownership.
So part of what the reason the hotels might be saying no to this is, and this is just a guess, if they're aware that if the judge says they end up owning it, they may well not end up with financial responsibility. The dam goes away, they don't have an easement, they don't have anybody on their property. From their perspective, on their property, everything is simple. And no headaches, no worries, no nothing. So that might be part of why it's hard to get an easement there, even if it's just for inspections and repairs. So it seems that if the county owns it, we're then in a position, if we pursue that easement, we're then in a position to work with the townships to see if something works out. I'm going to support the motion, but I also want the county and the towns to continue to work on this to develop a plan on what we do next, meaning we say for the moment, we're not going to do anything. So we come back to zoning and we've had more conversations. And I'm glad folks came and spoke today because it gives me at least better understanding of the things to talk about. And then we develop a plan to present next to the zoning committee and the board, so that, yes, even if we say no to it today, we're not sitting idle, we're continuing to work on this issue and developing a plan that we think works best without limiting our options and without creating a path that we go, whoops, we didn't think of something and now we have fewer options. Does that seem reasonable to you?
It does, because it allows them to get all the full work done for their tax districts. If they can come back and show you that the tax districts are in place and throw a check on the table for your seed money, where's the risk to the county then? They've covered the concerns at that point, which satisfies your point.
Then we develop a path that with the county and the townships, whatever viable path that is, or maybe isn't, that we know we've got those ducks in a row, we're past just having conversations. We have a better chance of success on whatever path we got that balance.
Right.
I agree with Pepe's motion, because I think what I've heard, all of the elements of the solution are there. We just need to take the time. Jeff, what happens on December 31st though? You get into trouble with that? You can't answer that.
That's not our call. That wasn't our date though.
What I'll refer back to is that, so the county decides to take no action, December 31st rolls around, the DNR is gonna have to decide if they want to take us to task and sue the county. And that's when I mean, my point today would be if the county decides to take no action, I'm not gonna go draft an email to the DNR and say, hey, we're not gonna do anything with this. Let the date come and pass. It buys all the property owners down there till December 31st. The DNR wouldn't start their action until, you know, first week of January at the soonest.
Yeah, but that's when I say no action, that doesn't mean we stop working on this. That means
Correct.
you take all of this input, all of these pieces, and you're working on the zoning administrator, and you may be coming back to the zoning committee next to run it by, you know, for
Correct.
input, and then also we could have another public comment period. So we're still actively working on this issue, we're just not making a decision today as to which direction we start.
Correct. It gives the townships their time to get their tax districts and their rates established, to come back to the board and say, this is what we're gonna be charging every year. This is what's gonna go into the non-lapsing fund for the dam. This is the seed money from the residents that are currently on the lake. To present you with the information, to then have you make the decision, are you willing to take the risk knowing that the money's there and the tax districts are in place?
So if we're doing those things, the DNR will work with us.
Correct.
We're willing to work with you. You feel like we've been doing this for so long. And we're running out of toilet paper. You know?
Gosh.
And that's the way it is. That's government. I don't care what it is.
Very well, Pep, you gotta,
I understand. I'm sorry.
you're pushing it.
I know it.
Just because it's your last meeting. Be careful. Question for you, is it smart then to go ahead with the easement process? I'm asking him.
My recommendation would be no, let's go with their recommendation. Let's, as soon as you go start the easement process, if we get the easement, congratulations, you're now the owner. If the tax districts don't go through, now you're bearing all the burden as a county. Where if we choose today to not move forward with the easement, I'll still work with the towns. The towns can do their paperwork, get their ducks in a row for their tax districts to come back here, whether it's October, November, December, February, you know, whatever that turns out to be, to show us all the tax districts are in place. This is what's going to happen. This is the money coming in. Then the people sitting on the county board realize that you're not going to be on the hook for a $25,000 study or, you know, 20,000 repairs. The money's going to be in place to do those things. You know, December 31st comes and the DNR says, well, you didn't decide, we're going to sue you. They can't get you in court by Tuesday. It just doesn't happen that fast.
Right.
You know, so right up until the day we end up in court, we can still say, you know, we'll do the easement. You know, and that would stop their process. And like Matt said, at that point, if there, you know, becomes a liability thing where, you know, perhaps insurance kicks in to cover the expenses, you know, if we were to push this all the way through.
All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table.
Is there any public input on at this point?
No.
No.
You can talk to one of the supervisors if they want.
I hate that thing.
Yeah, I think Supervisor Quebec.
On the subject.
Philomena, you wanted to weigh in?
Oh, I just want to call the question.
Thank you. All right, yeah, question is called.
I'll second the call on my behalf. On my behalf, I want to let him talk.
No.
We're in the middle of the vote.
Calls, we have to.
But sure you can.
No.
Of course I can.
We're in the middle of a vote.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Biden.
I'm not gonna comment on that, George.
George.
All right.
All in favor?
We have a motion and a second on the table.
The motion is to call the question, so we have to vote on that first.
Motion to call the question. All those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
George.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay.
Now we vote on Pepe.
Pardon?
There's no more debate, just vote on the motion.
All right, we have the motion on the table and the second to do nothing. That's what it sounds like we're doing, nothing.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously, I believe. And I think that's a good way to do it, Josh. Let them get their act together and, okay, okay, thank you. Yep. Well, that was painful. Thanks for coming, you guys.
Thanks, Josh.
When you get to the next item 7, I want to be recognized. It's a long time to get that.
Yeah, I have to give this a
I'm trying to keep an eye on the whole. I'm trying to keep an eye on the whole video.
That's your
Yeah. Hold on.
Order in the court. Finish the meeting. Okay, number 7 on the agenda. ARPA funds premium pay. Gary?
Yeah,
You want to come up here?
well,
It's probably important. We'd like to hear
and I see Matt's not here too, but I would like to see number 7 go back to the finance committee. And there's a real reason for this. We've got $1.5 million this year for ARPA funds. We have spent 75% or which 75% of that $1.5 million, $1 million went to human services. There's a total right now, and I'm not counting some of the little things. We spent 75%. There's $139,000 in other items that we purchased, the TVs, all these other little items. So 75% of our $1.5 million is already talked for or spoken for. I would like to see this premium pay item go back to the finance committee where they can discuss what else is out there that, what else is left of this money and where are we going with it? And I think between Dan being new and the finance committee, they can tell us what money do we really have left? Because I'm not sure we have 25% of this money left yet. And so I'd like to see this item 7 go to the finance committee for further discussion so they can tell us what exactly have we spent all our money? Where's the list? Because last week we found out that we had spent $139,000, $1 million to the human services. So do we really have money to spend or not? That's all I'm asking. If we have it, great. But I'd be real cautious about spending money we don't know that we haven't already earmarked for someone. And I think finance and Dan could figure that out and then come back to us and say, we have the money.
Mr. Chairman, this is on the agenda for finance in case the county board wants to send it back. If you make a decision tonight on what will come off the finance agenda, or if you choose to not make a decision, finance, it's on the agenda for them to take on.
If I make a motion, we table number 7.
Hang on.
Hey. Just let her do the dirty work.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try to move around.
So I have a motion that we table number 7 until it goes back to the finance committee.
I'll second that.
Yes.
It's on the finance committee too, and I'm going to support the motion. And part of what I would like is not only what Gary spoke to in terms of our budget for this year. We set aside $1 million for health and human services, and I would like to see an updated budget at our meeting next week that reflects what rate increase in taxes we're looking at right now based on what we've already budgeted with the ARPA fund. So if we're going to put $1 million into health and human services, and the first draft of the budget we saw, that $1 million wasn't pulled out of the budget that we looked at. So I'd like to see what rate of tax increase we're looking at. And then I'd also, I know you knew this, but you're accountant to tell us. Once this ARPA money is gone, something that our previous administrator stressed, and I completely agree with this, is we have to understand how the decisions we make with ARPA money impact whatever we take on once that ARPA money is gone. So that if you can kind of lay that vision out, because what we don't want to get to in 2-3 years from now is, oh my God, our budget was this big, but it was based on this total of roughly $3 million of ARPA money. And now we've got to make some changes that are going to be more than painful. And one of the things on the agenda, if the agenda is out for finance, is the 35,000 that we've been giving to the chamber, is I would want to understand that if we made a change to that, including eliminating that, what your recommendation would be in terms of where that fits into our budget, including if that would support raises and or changes in health insurance. Thank you.
Yeah, Matt.
I agree with Gary, this matter should go before finance, before it comes to us. That's the normal procedures on these in the past, is that the executive committee looked at what the proposals were for wages for the employees and made a decision, and then that was sent to finance for finance to figure out where that money was going to come from. And then they would make a recommendation to the full board after that. Having gone through both those committees stating finance has reviewed this, and this is where we suggest the money comes from, or we don't have the money to do it, which then creates a position where we as a board have to decide what, if any, of that. So the normal procedure should always be that it goes to finance before it comes to us for approval. So I support tabling this until after it's been to finance.
Bill.
The executive committee did look at this, and we voted 3-2 in favor of granting $500 to the employees, because we felt that they should be compensated something for the time during the COVID. And we thought that the salaries were really low in Ashland County, and this would be some way of giving compensation. And that the people worked through it, and we're going to have another one coming up. So, you know, this is some incentive. If I was an employee, I'm exposed to people coming in one way or another, so that's why I supported giving this like a $500 bonus. And rather than give it to some individual, I supported giving it to the people that work for Ashland County and had to go through all this. So that's why I supported giving a $500 bonus for people that were working for Ashland County and that had to deal with this. When someone comes into your office, we can't tell them you have to leave, you know. So I guess I'm not in favor of tabling this. I think that the employees should be compensated something, and I believe we're going to have another one coming up. Thank you.
Anybody else want to weigh in?
Supervisor Ortman, please.
Go ahead.
I thought the officer that was here was declaring that what we were offering them wasn't enough, that they wanted more. I'm just throwing that out there. Thank you.
Pat?
I do want to note that the board did approve, I believe, 40 extra hours per week or per year that the employees could have off this year. That's not compensation that, you know, carries forward after this year, but it was 40 extra hours. And probably a question for the administrator is, and the lieutenant that spoke here, you know, it's one thing to use sick hours when you're sick. And I don't know if any employees use some of those extra 40 hours because they were sick. If they give more flexibility, but I want to go home because you're sick or exposed to COVID, it doesn't really help you much in terms of time off, but at least there was more flexibility this year because of those 40 hours.
I don't know the answer to that question. I will talk to the clerk's office after the meeting and find out. Laura.
Go ahead, Laura.
While I think that the staff deserves as much as we can give them, I also think that giving them $500 is a pittance compared to what we could do if we actually did a wage study and an area study to make sure that we brought our wages up to at least slightly competitive with the counties around us. I don't like this comparison of $500 and you had to deal with this. If we want to do the people that are working for us justice, we will do a total study and make sure that we make them competitive instead of throwing $500 at them.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Franick. Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
I would agree with Counselor or Supervisor Negro that if they can do a wage study and get them a better premium, because like the officer said, they are in harm's way every day. Long as it doesn't interfere with their jobs and cause them any undue stress if it's taking too long for us to do that. Thank you.
Good morning still. So I was doing a very careful reading of the Federal Register yesterday. There's regulations that go along with ARPA, and I mean, some things that I'd like to point out are that the intention for the premium pay provisions is to provide premium pay to people who are bearing out a disproportionate share of the health and economic impacts of the pandemic. And so these are frontline workers, including people like social services, human services, janitors, sanitation workers, and I'm sure people who work in jails. And, you know, certainly there's a very serious there's a very serious worker shortage at the jail at this point. And the ARPA allows for an amount of up to $13 per hour in addition to their regular wages, up to an aggregate amount not to exceed $25,000 per worker. And so, you know, the fund should be compensating the lower income eligible workers that are performing extra work. And so this premium pay should not be going to people who are not in harm's way when we're talking about COVID, because we still have a lot of issues with COVID. So, you know, I would be in favor of looking at if there's ways that we can provide a bump from the ARPA funds. That's an hourly bump for workers at the jail and other people who are, you know, who are working for the county, who are in the public, you know, in the public view. And, you know, those are any kind of forward facing people that are at risk of, you know, at risk of getting infected, because, you know, certainly we have vaccines and they're very effective. But even if you, the vaccines aren't 100% effective, and if you do become positive for COVID, you're quarantined for a while, and then if you don't have sick pay, you're losing out, and then you're possibly infecting other people in your family. So there's real serious economic impacts, and these have a potential of affecting the folks who are lower paid at a much greater at disproportionately, like it says in the federal regulations. So, you know, I think it's really great that Lieutenant Lavasser came in today and provided public comments and advocated for her staff, because, you know, we're seeing the impact of not providing adequate compensation in the fact that we don't have enough staff there to adequately supervise the inmates and perform all the functions that the jail staff needs. And as we all are very aware, we have serious issues that need to be addressed with respect to the administration of the jail. And some of these issues relate to not having adequate staff, not having adequate supervision. So, you know, I think it's very important that we seriously consider this proposal.
Thank you. Well, Mina, just for your update on this, when it came before the executive committee and finance, nobody discounts the fact that those people that were in harm's way should be compensated. Where the problem arises is we have 200 employees. So you're gonna have half of them are happy and half are gonna really be mad. So this is what we're trying to decipher right now, is who gets the premium pay and who doesn't. If you just $500 times 200 employees, it's a lot of money. And brought up, I don't know if we want to blow the whole ARPA fund in one shot like that, or, yeah, I think it's got to go back to finance.
I agree.
Yeah, you have two supervisors, yeah.
Bill?
I think that a lot of the jail staff and other employees are way underpaid. I think that the finance committee should look at bumping them up immediately. When you can go to McDonald's and start at $14 an hour and they're only getting $12 some cents an hour, they can go to McDonald's. So I think that this $500 that would be given would be a bonus. And I think that the finance committee should look into raising the lower salaries. They should raise the amount so that we're not competing with McDonald's. So that's something that needs to be addressed immediately at the next budget. So the finance committee can look into that, raising the lower paid employees of the county, but not to discriminate against anybody that works for Ashland County. I think we should give this immediately $500 bonus.
Matt?
I don't disagree with many of the comments that made about our staff being underpaid, and I agree completely. And, I attended the meeting, although I wasn't a member of the committee, and I understand the rationale of the bonus, and I support that. I want to point out that the way we're set up, the executive committee is the committee that decides wages and salaries for all of our employees. And finance's role in this is simply to look at it and figure out where that money is going to come from. It's not, finance doesn't have a way in, are we going to do this or not? If they look at it and decide we don't have enough money to do it, all they can do is just pass that comment on to the full board when we vote on whether we do it or not. So I agree with what you're saying, but executive is the one that should be taking that bull by the horn and figuring it out. It's not easy. It's never been easy. But you bring up excellent points. The wage structure has come up dramatically in the area. And I just drove by McDonald's here on the way this morning to this meeting. They're paying $14 an hour for starting managers. Probably you get a free meal out of it too. I don't know if we do that for anybody. But I guess my point is this belongs in executive, your comments, and I support what you're saying. The bonus money, I think, is fair in having heard. It's just a matter of, do we have the money to do it? I believe we do, but it doesn't hurt to run it through finance and just make sure that so that we can get it done.
There's a certain amount of risk working at McDonald's too.
You're right.
And they're getting paid for
You eat there.
That coffee is a lot.
Here's where I get thrown out.
Happy, whatever.
The ARPA money, we got some this year, we'll get another, amount next time. So this is a 2-year shot to use ARPA money, for wages, if that's something we choose to do. But then the ARPA money is done, and, Matt, you're right about, what you said about executive committee. And this is on the agenda for Tuesday, we're giving a local organization $35,000 a year. To me, it just seems like a no-brainer. If we talk about shifting that money to wages for employees, and then that amount of money that goes somewhere else right now, we just use that on a recurring basis towards wages with employees, not just a 1 or 2 year shot, but it lifts that boat on an ongoing thing. So we've got some options in front of us to lift the wages some, even if we don't use ARPA. So hopefully on Tuesday we can start on that path.
Anybody else?
Laura's on the.
Phoebe was first.
Go ahead, Laura.
Go ahead.
Phoebe was first. Phoebe's had her hand up and she's muted.
In response, Chairman Pufal, in your response to, this idea that we need to raise everyone's wages, the federal regulations are very clear that there are certain people who should be prioritized for the priority pay. And these are folks who are essential workers, who have heightened risks because they face, they have face-to-face contact with the public, and also people who have lower wages. So I would say that jail staff would fall into this category, and there's probably other categories of workers that should be prioritized for this premium pay. It's not meant to be across the board, because we're experiencing, these pandemic issues in different ways because of where we're working, how we're working, and what our job duties are. And so I would really suggest that the executive committee reads this little passage very carefully. It's in the Federal Register. I can provide it to Dan. It's good. It's written well, and it's easy to understand. It's basically folks who are essential workers, and they're kind of in the public view. They're at increased risks to COVID infection. And number two, they are lower income workers. What is it? It's low to moderate income workers. So that's it.
Well, maybe we have to get a determination on employees classified in harm's way. And everybody that deals with the public, as far as I'm concerned, comes under that category. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, I was gonna make the same point that Phoebe did, but I'm also gonna point out that, if we want to raise everybody's pay to the right levels, exec committee did vote down on August 19th that they weren't gonna do a wage study, from my understanding under the minutes. So we've got a couple working pieces here to actually get people where they need to be. So, but otherwise, on the bonus across the board, I agree with Supervisor.
Clarence, you haven't spoken in about 2 days.
I'd like a clarification. Are we asking for premium pay for 100% of the county workers? Bill tells me that it only applies to those who are dealing with the public, that it did not apply to those who work from home.
Yeah.
100% of the time, remotely. It did not include those.
Yeah, that was a discussion.
Dylan has his hand up online. Dylan needs to talk.
What?
Dylan needs to talk.
Go ahead.
Wait till the afternoon session.
Yeah, this is Supervisor Jennings here. I'd also have to echo what Supervisor Quebec was saying, about prioritizing those ones, looking at wage, looking at all of those factors that that could increase people's exposure to the actual sickness. And I also just like to point out too that the pandemic is not over. We're still in the middle of it, whatever people seem to think. We just we have a spike here in our area right now. Our Head Start actually just got shut down for the entire week because of community spread here in Bad River, which put a lot of parents at odds without childcare, like it's been happening over the year. We're very much still in the middle of this, and so I would really petition the Finance Committee and Executive Committee to consider potentially other expenses that we might need some of these funds for, right? Looking at trends down south and out west too, where cases really seem to be erupting again with the Delta variant. Reading about other variants that are, not seeming to be reacting to vaccines. Still kind of scary, right? And so I just want to make sure we as a county are prepared long-term for this, because I still think this is going to drag out longer than we all expect. Who would have thought this would have lasted this long? And so just to make sure that, if this is our little coffer to protect our community and citizens from, from this, from COVID-19, make sure that we're we're planning for that and not, kind of not blowing the wad in one fell swoop in case we need it for other things. So just my couple points. Thank you.
Staff speak? Okay.
Happy, what do you have to
I
say?
really want to go over. When you think about this, that jail staff, and I don't want you to think, I have a granddaughter that works there. The first week, she ended up in quarantine because somebody came in, they were COVID. Bang, there goes 2 weeks. Now, no sooner gets back and gets clobbered from an inmate, thrown to the ground. Bam, here we go again. You don't think them guys need, and I'm gonna be gone from here on out, but why don't you spend some time in there and find out, they're not just sitting there watching TV a lot. They are in contact with the outside source. And if you think working at McDonald's is a risk, you ought to go be a goddamn person that works in the jail when they bring them in. They deserve something. And that's all I got to say, and goodbye.
Matt, would you like to speak?
This is really off the top of my head, but you know, in the news in the last week or two, there's a lot of firms saying, and schools, colleges saying, you have to get vaccinated if you're gonna work here, or if you're gonna attend a school here. The ARPA funds in part can be used for premium pay for those who are at risk, and I realized we didn't have a vaccine until, you know, late winter into the spring, depending on where we fell on the age list. But I'm wondering if we can think about tying the use of that ARPA fund premium pay into an incentive program for vaccinating employees, in part so our health insurance costs aren't going to be higher than they were. We have someone on the county insurance this year that ran up the better part of $1 million related to healthcare. Now our reinsurance picked up, you know, majority of that, but if we keep having COVID-related healthcare costs, our history will show that our insurance rates are going to go up. So if we can incentivize employees to get vaccinated, it will help with insurance rates, both for the employee and the county going forward. And then I wonder if the employees, if we do give premium pay, if, this is really off the top of my head, but what if we have an employee who works in an at-risk job and says, I don't want to get vaccinated? It's a choice that they have, and I respect that. But it's a little hard to justify premium pay for an at-risk position if the person doesn't want to get vaccinated, and then the county pays 10% of insurance, if others then incur the higher costs for healthcare, 90% of it for that employee.
Supervisor Kinney, I was gonna be bringing that issue up at Finance Committee when they discussed the healthcare.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
that we talked about it at Department Heads meeting.
Bill,
Something real short. May 1st, we're going to get another $1.5 million for COVID money.
that's a long ways off.
COVID money.
How much?
$1.5 million.
Chairman, move on.
Gary?
Here's my concern, how much have we dictated that money for?
We have
And
not,
human-
not
no,
one cent.
But Human Services came, and I point to the Human Services Chair, Human Services came with a great request. Take $1 million and put it towards that. What's to say they're not coming back to that next year? All I am saying is you can't spend money you don't have. And we do not have that money until next May. And we've already spent 75% or more, not spent, but put out there. You can't keep spending money you don't have and then go back to the taxpayers in December and say, we're gonna raise your taxes even more than we did last year. And here's my concern about wages. If we don't have some kind of a wage study and we say we can afford the wage increase, if you give a raise now and then next year you give a raise, that raise next year is based on the increase this year. It keeps compounding. And that's why I suggested looking into the fact, and we can talk about this some other day, of using the ARPA money to pay the raises for the next 2 years if it's under the requirements. in some shape or form, because then in 2 years, your base has an increase. We give a 2% raise next year, it raises the base. The following year, whatever you give raises the base. If there's some way, and I'm not the expert here, we're gonna look to other people for that. If you figure out how you could give our employees the raises they deserve, but use ARPA money somehow, and not increase your base, we bought another year of the base not going up. We can't keep spending money. I'm sorry, I dare anyone in this room to go back to the taxpayers tomorrow and tell them we just authorized $100,000 of ARPA money for increases, and we're gonna raise your taxes by the way. That's all I'm saying. I'm all in favor of giving the staff what they deserve, but we gotta figure out what we do for 2 years, because Pat said it, in 2 years, we're in trouble. There's no more ARPA money. And what are we gonna do then if we raise taxes this December? We all realize we're a million something short on health insurance. We stole money, I'm sorry, but we stole money from different departments, which has gotta stop. I'm running a department, I live within my budget. I don't come to you and take your money. You have your budget. We have to figure that out, and I trust finance and the new administrator to take care of that. But all I'm saying is, let's make sure that we dictated where our money is, because I guarantee you, at the rate we were going, by December, we'd have earmarked the whole $1.5 million, and we'd be short.
Matt?
Do we have a motion on the floor?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
And it's been seconded.
Okay, I call the question.
Thank you.
All those in favor of calling the question?
I'll second it.
Aye.
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 And what was?
So Terry Barningham does have her hand up too.
She's, that's. It's not hate to us.
What?
Terry wants to speak, but it's out of order.
It's not what?
It's out of order. It's out of order for Terry to speak.
Oh, okay.
She had her hand up before we had the motion, the call to question.
It's still out of order.
All right, we have a vote on calling the question. I think we should do a roll call. I don't know who voted what.
Would you read the motion? This is for calling the question. Okay, roll call for calling the question. Jennings.
Can you repeat the motion, please? This is it kind of seems like everything's a little bit.
This is for calling the question. Explain that.
This is the call to question. It's the motion to end debate.
Come again?
It's a motion to end debate.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Berlin. Purple.
Yes.
Makeup.
Yeah.
VTech.
Yeah.
Wiener. Who's that? I'm gonna say yes, no. That was George. Judy. Yes. Murray.
Yes.
Negro.
Yes.
Mackenzie.
Yes.
Quebec.
Yes.
Metzinger.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Kabasa. Yes. Kinney.
Yes.
Ortman.
No.
Granick. Granick. Hello. Hoopa.
Yes.
I think the ones on the phone are muted.
They can unmute themselves.
All right, we got 16.
15 to 1.
Okay,
Thank you very
call the
much.
question. Now we're gonna vote on the motion.
Heather, could you read the motion back, please?
So this is a motion to table and bring to finance by Shudi and Kabasa.
Perfect.
Okay, did you hear the motion?
Everybody online here, the motion? I just asked if everybody online.
Oh. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 I,
Roll call, please.
Heather, can we do a roll call?
Absolutely. Again, this is to table and bring to finance. Berlin,
Yes.
Corpola,
Yes.
Mika,
Yes.
Vitek,
Yes.
Shudi,
Yes.
Murday,
Yes.
Negro,
Yes.
McKenzie,
Yes.
Quebec,
yes.
Metzinger,
No.
Campbell,
Yes.
Kabasa,
Yes.
Kinney,
Yes.
Wortman,
Yes.
Granick,
yes,
Luke Jennings is still on.
Hupal,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
so we have 16 yes, 1 no.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. The ARPA premium pay will be referred back to finance. Thank you. Number 8, biggest one of the day, the award the horseshoe winner.
I'll do this as quick as I can. If somebody can take a picture for us, I'd like to make a motion to table this. So I'll stand over here so everybody can see. So we did the county horseshoe pitching thing. And so Dan is gonna hand out the certificates, and I've got names on them who they belong to. And this year, the winners of the horseshoe tournament are Marty Vitek and Dick Pupal. So it's $20 for first place. Marty? Yeah, no, not each. Come here for a picture. So this is yours. And this is Marty's. And here's your certificate. Yeah, I can hold it for the picture. I was up till 3 o'clock this morning doing this. And Marty is your money. And Dick, it will take a picture.
Do you want to stand up, Dick, so I can get a picture?
No.
Okay, move on that side.
My partner.
And Dan's gonna come in the picture too.
All right, Dan, squeeze in there.
Okay,
He can stay right there, that's perfect.
okay.
All right, everybody smile. Pretend you're enthused. All right.
All right.
Good job, good job.
And then second place went to Philomena Quebec and myself. Is somebody gonna see Philomena that they can give her the money? Or we can hang on to it too.
Ask her if she's, where is she? Is she at home?
Philomena, are you at home?
No, I just started with Bad River again. I'm at the tribe.
Okay, we'll save the money for you. It's enough to go on a big trip. It's all the way to
It was
Glen.
fun playing with you, Kathy.
Thank you. It's a great day to do something fun that's not political. You don't have
Yeah.
horseshoes. It was just great. Then we decided that we were gonna give an award for the person who threw the most ringers. Her name, how do you pronounce her last name? Barbara.
Jasper.
Barbara Jaska won the prize for throwing the most ringers at the county fair.
One.
So I'm gonna give this to Dick. It's his friend, and would you give that to Barbara for us?
Yeah, and we're Gonna donate this to who?
And the four wheel back.
Oh, they're gonna donate it back to 4-H.
Oh, nice.
It's a great day. It's a fun day and thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
county boards,
We actually-
county administrator updates. You
Oh, no,
have?
we have a district. The agenda was amended.
Pardon?
We amended the agenda for districting.
Oh,
Yeah, here. That's the amended version.
oh, I'm sorry, I guess I got the old one.
Yeah. So, so you have Max here for this issue.
Yes. Are you on the board now?
I am not.
Oh, okay.
So,
Oh,
you want to,
okay, I.
you want to start?
Yeah. Adopt a tentative Ashland County Supervisory District. We have Brittany gonna fill us in on this.
All right, so the first thing I want to start about talking is the timeline. So the census data was delivered to us 5 months late. So to get everything on track for the new lines to be in effect for the April election, we have a compressed timeline. So we are in stage 1 right now, where we draft a tentative plan. Stage 2 is where we send it to all of our municipalities, the towns, the cities, and the villages. And they look at our draft plan. They provide us with comments and submit a plan back to us. And then in stage 3, we again get a crack at our county board districts and taking in consideration what the municipalities have provided us. So all of this usually has a much longer timeline, but we are looking at about a month for each stage of this. So to move this on, we have it here today, provided as the tentative plan. So some of the federal guidelines is that each district must have equal population, and our equal population number is 763. Another guideline is to keep minority populations protected, to keep districts compact, to keep districts contiguous, which means we can't have pieces of one district not touching another piece of that district, except for the exemption with our actual island in the county. And another guideline is to preserve communities of interest. So the last guideline is to preserve political subdivisions, which just means preserving municipality boundaries. So that is a guideline to not split up municipalities if we don't have to. So the plan that you have in your packet is what we are calling Plan 3. We, as the redistricting committee, we have looked over 4 or 5 plans, and this is the one we have motion to bring to the full county board for approval. This plan, what we were looking at when we decided to use this plan was trying to get that equal population number of 763 in each district. Another priority of the redistricting committee was to protect the Native American population's vote. And another priority was to limit splitting municipalities and creating wards in our municipalities. And that was a high priority of the committee. And I just wanted to point out that we do have the largest allowed amount of districts. So we are at 21 districts, and that is the max that any county can have. And our population is around 16,000, and 50% of that roughly is in the city of Ashland. Those were a couple notes I wanted to put out there. This plan does have a deviation of 16.91%. So it is a little bit higher than the guideline of 10%. However, we wanted to protect our municipality boundaries as much as possible, and we wanted to try to protect that native.
Oh, hey. Okay.
So I just want to reiterate that this is the tentative plan that we are sending to municipalities.
Oh,
Can you mute?
yeah, so we could,
Thank you. So this is our tentative plan that we need to send along to the municipalities to get feedback to then sit back down as the redistricting committee and decide our final boundaries that will then be presented back to you guys.
So,
Yes.
How many districts are in the city of Ashland? And will the city of Ashland follow our redistricting?
Currently, there are 11 districts in the city of Ashland. The city has an ad hoc redistricting committee, and they have recommended to go down to 8 wards.
Is that what the plan shows now?
No, so this is our plan that we are passing to the municipalities, and then once they make the final approval, they will pass it back to us where we get to make the final decision on the lines.
Okay, right now on this plan that you're submitting, the city of Ashland has 11.
Correct.
And then I just found out this morning, I think, since the city's population came back under 8,000, now I think they're going to be required to reduce the number of wards from 11 down to 7 or 8. So that will be coming, and then we'll have to adjust, and based on that, after the municipality gives its feedback.
So did we make our move? And then that happens, or?
So that's why this is just a tentative plan. We did it based on the information that the county has right now, so then it goes off to the city. They provide back with their new ward designations, and then we would incorporate any of the recommendations they have. Ultimately, it's going to, if that happens, it's not going to match up as evenly as it always has been between districts and wards.
Yeah, we got 2 people. Who wants to be first?
I just want to say I was part of this committee, and Brittany did a lot of hard work for us on this, and it was looked at without, taking consideration too, as far as where we live, as supervisors, as we've done, as bipartisan as you can get, if you will, and not looking at where you live or, who might be interested or who isn't. This was looked at on strictly lines that made sense, and it also considered school districts and the keeping townships as intact as we can to help reduce the cost of ballots, because that's what it starts to create. This tentative proposal that we came up with was adjusted in such a way that the island, the town of La Pointe was included with the city of Ashland to bump up those numbers and allow for 11 seats. It's not a guarantee that they're gonna have 11 seats, but it was a plan that allowed the city to maintain their 11 seats if they want to do it. I think this was, it was a difficult process. There was a lot of horse trading going on as far as what made sense, but I think it worked out as fair and as evenly distributed across the county as we could do, and I support this.
If the city goes to 8, so that's an even number, would that mean that the mayor would then be voted to break ties, on a more regular basis? But would any of those seats be at large? And I'm curious partly about this, because we don't know where the city's gonna end up yet. When I was on the city council from 2010 to 2018, we looked at changing the number of wards just after 2010, and it was too late. The idea was to save money, and then we looked at it again in early 18, thinking we'd be ahead of the game. And it wasn't supported to cut down from 11 then. But the big thing that came back from the research on that was that we have higher election costs if the boundaries of the city and the county are not the same And does the city incur all of the costs for elections, or does the county also incur some costs? And I guess one more comment would be, if we incur some of those costs, or just as taxpayers who live in the city, which is, 11 of us, is there going to be a process where we try to get on the same page with ward lines to keep those costs down?
Well, I can answer most of those questions. First off, if the city decides to go to 8, they get to decide what their boundaries are. They get to decide what their boundaries are. They could say we're gonna have 8 separate wards and everybody gets 1 representative. Or they're gonna say we're gonna have 4 wards and everybody gets 2. Or they could have 4 wards and then 4 at large. That's all the choice the city has, it's their choice to make completely. So this county board has no say in that matter, completely the city issue. As far as election costs, counties pay for ballots. Counties pay for ballots and deliver them to the municipalities. So any extra cost for printing would be borne by the county. These municipalities are responsible for separating the ballots at night if there's 2 different wards or 2 different counties. In my case, I had 2 counties, so we had to separate that one. But yeah, that's how elections are done. Municipalities just run it, counties pay for ballots.
I looked at this online and I tried to zoom in, particularly on my district. It looks, but it's impossible to read street names and numbers when you zoom in on this. And so I couldn't quite tell. It looks like my district has shifted 4 blocks to the east, but I'm not sure. And I couldn't, and it also looks like some of the districts that include both city and township. For instance, I'm looking at District 4, now is part of that district in the town of Jingles?
No. So at the top of that page was a link, and this link was a map that you could zoom in and out of, so.
I was zooming in and out, and I couldn't read the.
Right, if you click on the link, it should have adjusted to move those roads closer, the font larger.
It didn't, I mean, at least, maybe I wasn't doing the right thing, but I zoomed in right on,
Because there's,
my
so
district, and I couldn't read.
this was a PDF map, but the link itself was a live website that the state hosts, that where you can, so knowing that going forward, please use the link, because.
Matt?
I just want to clarify one point. We have no say over what the city has for city councilors. That's their business. What we're doing here is we're tentatively saying these would be county representatives regardless of what their lines are with this plan. We can adjust our plan to try and meet the same and take care of some of that as we go along here. But initially, this is just our proposal of how we're going to divide up our seats on the county board.
Yeah, we have to.
We have to.
We have to.
Yes.
We-
Line up with the city.
No.
That's what I want.
Max, I have a question for you.
Yes,
You say now it's mandatory that City of Ashland have to cut their board down?
that's what and that was what I just heard this morning as I was preparing to come in here, that we got some, either a guidance or a directive on that. But don't hold me to that. Huh?
Where did the figure come in? What's the figure?
It was just under 8,000.
79 something.
Yeah, 7,900 some. So it was just under that 8,000 mark. And Tyler Wickman, Ashland City Attorney, just told me when I was coming in here that, it was a discussion to get that the city's going to lessen their wards. But now it seemed like that was.
What if I can find a half a dozen homeless people?
Maybe, I don't know.
I think it's too late, yeah.
Yep, it's already, they didn't get counted.
Under the bridge.
And I'll just say too, I was requested to give a legal opinion on this since the proposed deviation is higher than the 10% presumptive constitutional deviation. And my opinion is that the county, this would be totally defensible to have it, even though it's almost 17%. The basis for the county's districts fall within the guidelines of what they should do. And after the 2020 census, Forest County actually got sued over their redistricting because they had a deviation of 18%. And the Seventh Circuit said that even though that was 18%, that was appropriate because they followed many of the same guidelines we're doing. Also significant is the small population of the county. They pointed out, in our case, even if we just moved 20 people from the biggest district or 35 to the smallest, that would get us back within the 10%. So it's not like we're having thousands of people in these bigger municipalities that they would have that throw those off. It's really, if 2 or 3 families move across the line, it's gonna change these numbers a lot. And the Seventh Circuit placed a big emphasis on that, the small population. So I think that the county is definitely on solid legal footing here to withhold any voting rights challenges, even though the deviation is greater than the 10%.
Problem that we're gonna have with this is if the city and the county's districts don't line up, then it's gonna be a real nightmare at election time.
Yeah, so that's what the purpose of we refer this to the municipality, and that's why this is just tentative. So everyone needs to go, and if you're in the city of Ashland, if you have an interest in that, be involved at the city level so that they can really get a concrete and a good recommendation presented to the county so that everyone can work together and can really make this as smooth as possible.
Yeah, Mike.
I'm prepared to make a motion to adopt the tentative action plan.
I'll second it.
So discussion.
We have a motion
I
on
just-
the table to adopt the redistricting. Okay, Laura.
I'm just wondering if this still gives us the flexibility to change the number of county board supervisors too, if the city chooses to go down, and we can too.
Yes, it does.
Cool, thanks.
Yes.
You know, Laura, regarding your question there, if we turn out to have as many seats in and out of the city as outside of the city, if the city is going to 8, then that would mean if we mirror it, potentially the county's at 16, and then who would break the vote if it's tied? Because your board chair is already a member of the board, whereas the mayor is not a member, was technically a member of the council, but isn't accounted among those 8. So I don't know how we would break a tie if they have an even number. And I don't see how we could have the same boundaries if they have an even number, because we couldn't break a tie vote unless we're willing to accept failed votes to a tie.
That's what the case would be. If you had an even number, you would have a failed vote.
You have a what?
The vote would fail.
Okay.
Now, how many times that's gonna happen?
You don't have a tiebreaker?
No, not if you have an even number of county board members.
Okay. Come back.
I just want to point out that the city goes with less counselors and we look at changing our numbers with our plan. What we're gonna end up having to do is we're gonna have to redistrict the whole county. It's not just gonna be the city, and we're gonna lose seats in the southern part of the county because the population is not there. So, you know, that's the other damage of the city reducing down to 8. It really, if we try to match that, it's gonna really make our districts a lot bigger. And that, a lot of those numbers are gonna be in the outreaching areas of the county that are gonna lose basically more direct involvement, if you will. There's gonna be a lot more people that are gonna have to, you know, figure out that.
Yeah.
Dick,
Yeah.
Town officials should have 2 people, that's all I'm saying. My opinion.
According to the population or what?
Yeah, because of it's 800 people, we should have 2 people.
What is the number you're looking for, Brittany? 7?
763.
In the tentative plan presented, Jingles is split up into 2 different wards, so the opportunity for 2 seats is available in the tentative plan.
Then you can keep one. But you can't quit then. If you started it, you can't quit. Anybody else? Anybody else want to speak on this? We have a motion and a second on the table to adopt this redistricting plan, tentative plan.
Second the motion.
What?
It's already been.
We already have one.
Dick, can you just remember that it's a tentative plan?
I just said that.
Okay.
You want to use my hearing aids? Okay, all those in favor of redistricting plan, the tentative plan, vote yes. All right, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say no. Good, now we've crossed one legal hurdle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know that you would have any updates. You just got to town.
I know, I've just been trying to sit around and get to learn everybody's names and far from that part. So please excuse me if I don't remember your names for a while. Can I have that letter that we go over from EMC? The EMC letter? I'll share that with them. I did get some good news today, and I shared with the chair. EMC, our insurance carrier, is reimbursing the county $38,308 in the Anthony Jones case.
The sheriff thing.
The sheriff's issue. So of the 41,000 that was missing, the county is getting that back minus our $3,000 deduction. And I have a letter here from the supervisor would like to see.
That's a good deal.
So.
That all you have, Dan?
I do have one other issue, but I'll let Supervisor Cabasso speak to it.
Oh, no. Go ahead, Pepe.
I'm going to hit the road. I've been diagnosed with something that is going to progress. I knew when I got this that I'd have to resign sooner or later, and it's gotten harder to manipulate. And so I handed in my resignation. I hope we get some buck that's as hungry as I was to replace me if I don't, god dang it. But this is my last meeting. I feel real bad because I've been here a while, and this is my cocoon, my safe haven. My father was here, my son was here, and Ken Lundquist, Bud Holt. It's been an honor to work with every one of you and every one of our, almost every one of our administrators. And I said almost, and but it's time to go. And thank you for a wonderful ride.
I'd just like to say, I'd just like to say thank you, Pepe, for donating 20 years of your life to the county board. And now we can give her a big hand.
Well,
What?
Kathy wants to say something.
I was just gonna ask Pepe how many years she served
Thank
on.
you, Kathy.
Yeah, that was my question, but you already answered.
Now can we clap?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we have on the updates, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, sir.
County Board Supervisor reports. Anybody have any reports?
I have a question. Dan, can you tell us your first day that you started
The 7th,
of September?
correct.
Wait, counting down already?
Yes.
That's 17.
Productivity thing.
Yeah, I got 17 years.
Yeah, Pat.
So I'm chair of the zoning committee, and Josh had talked to me about the dam issue a number of weeks ago. And if anyone has input, whether it's board members or other people there, please talk with Josh. let me know. And there's been a lot of conversations going on about the dam issue and who supports what or who doesn't support what. And what's clear to me, not just from today, but other conversations, is we need to make sure we're working through Josh and going through a process to get to wherever this is going to take us. And so if you could direct those to Josh primarily, but if you want to direct them to me, I want to work closely with Josh so that we have one full communication, and then hopefully we end up at a good place for everybody with this, instead of just letting the thing sit.
You're done. I can't recognize you. You're done.
I went and talked to Dan, our administrator. And before I did that, I talked to a few other people, and I couldn't believe the smiles. I have never had this, our people that work for us happier. Now. Yes. Excuse me. But it was nice to see them smiling again, and maybe it's because he's just got here and he's being nice. I don't know, but I've never seen them act like that. I had one say, it's a joy to come to work. And I am so glad I backed this guy. And I hope you are, and give him everything he needs to succeed. Because happy employees give our job easier.
Anybody else in the reports?
I would just like to know, Debbie,
What?
if business is done, could you make a motion for once to adjourn?
Oh, hell yeah. Dick wants me to. Dick, you're fun. I would love to make a motion, thank you, that we go the adjournment.
We have a
But I
second.
second the motion.
We have a second, or people want to stay out there? Already seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Adjourn. Don't forget to drop off your vote.